Welcome to Taking the Helm with Lynn McLaughlin. In this ever-changing world, it's essential to prioritize our children's emotional well-being. Lynn can show you how to learn and model healthy emotional habits for your loved ones and become a rock-solid support system for your family. Now, here's your host.
Good day, and thank you for joining us again. Last week was so interesting because we had Kelsey Timiak and Julia Reckers with us, and they are child and youth practitioners. They have their own private practice, which is almost unheard of. It's another way and another option for us to offer mental health services to our children, our youth, and our adults. If you're currently thinking about going into one of these programs or are a graduate or about to graduate from one of these programs, you might want to consider going into private practice. I am very excited to welcome Faust Ruggiero here. His professional career spans almost 40 years. He's a published research author, a clinical trainer, and a therapist who has worked in settings that have included clinics for deaf children, prisons, nursing homes, substance abuse centers, inpatient facilities, and major corporations, both national and international. As the president of the Community Psychological Center in Bangor, Pennsylvania, in that capacity, he's also developed the Process Way of Life counseling program. It helps clients address the various conditions that were affecting their lives. Welcome, Faust. It's fantastic to have you join us.
Lynn, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Oh, our pleasure and our honor. All right. So our listeners are eager to learn about your fascinating work. What led you to choose your current path, and what personal experiences have shaped that passion for what you're doing today?
You know, Lynn, sometimes you choose your path in life. Sometimes it feels like it's already predetermined. It kind of chooses you. That's me. I'm just a person. I think I was born to be in service of other people. I still, after well over 40 years, love to hear people talk. I love to meet them and connect and do all those things. And in that I have the skill set to be able to help them through some of these things that they're dealing with. That just makes it that much more rewarding.
Well, and we can deal with it and we can overcome. And it is about our way of thinking, isn't it? I wouldn't say all of the time, but a lot of the time.
It is, things are going to happen. It's a dynamic world where that's never going to change. So somewhere along the line, we train ourselves to be able to, interpret the information correctly, and then, work some of these processes I'm talking about to help yourself through these things. And it's not rocket science, so to speak. It's not, something that's out there and some people just have and the rest of us never get it. We all have it. We just have to learn how to do it. That's all.
So you and I talked. I always do a get to know you call, everyone, with my guests before we jump on and do our live interview, just so I can better understand where people are coming from and do my own research. And Faust, that this show and my passion is about being proactive and giving people the tools they need before they have symptoms or say, aha, I have to look into that. And all of your experience after all of these years and what you've been doing really does say to me, and that's why I've invited you to be on the show, that the things that you're teaching people and helping them learn today can absolutely be taught to children.
Always, and we start with the parents. I always say we're the ones delivering all this stuff to our kids. We really have to have our act together. So we look at what we need to do, and then we start teaching it. The more information, it's two things. It's kids having information and support and all those things. The other thing is it's teaching the next generations to understand the processes that are involved. This ability to look at information, to interpret that, and then to move forward and use it properly. And we don't teach those things. We're a very quick fix society. We wait for the symptom and then we go fix it really fast and we move to the next thing. And it never really, we never alleviate the cause of the problem. So I like to teach people what to do to think about anything that comes up in their life, not only when they're with me. It's going to keep on happening. I'm not going to see them all, forever. So let's get you good about dealing with with whatever comes along.
What do you say to people who have the attitude of, hey, it worked for me. I didn't talk about my feelings. I didn't deal with any of this stuff. I dealt with information just fine, and look how I turned out. Why is that not working anymore?
I find that the best way to deal with folks like that is to keep on asking questions. Really? Well, how did you deal with it? Well, tell me more about that. And they will stumble. They will trip themselves. And then at that point, either they have to deal with the embarrassment or the anger, whatever it is, when that happens, or they say, well, why? What are you looking to do? Then I say, oh, I'm glad you asked. And I go into what I do. Now, they're never, if I can get those folks to change 20% of it, wonderful. If, in other words, if you just get them thinking, what you just asked is why it happens. They're not going to do the work. They're not going to hear new information. They're not going to become humble enough, if you will, to say, all right, you may have something that works and I don't have that. They don't want that. So the easiest way is to say, good, you tell me, you teach me. And they will, I usually say it gets about 3 questions deep, and then they say, huh? Then we go from there.
Well, and I think you kind of said it as you were introducing the topic about the information, right? The information that we have around us 24/7 is very different than when we were growing up, right?
Oh my goodness, yes. I always tell the story of the when I coach soccer, the kid that like everyone else was wearing their pants halfway down, and I finally, why don't you get those up? And he looked at me and says, "You don't understand. Our minds don't work that way. You guys trained yourself to have it around your waist. We're kind of lower, and if we pull it up, everything feels wrong." And it clicked. I said, they're processing differently. And I'm trying to teach with my old methods. So guess what? The teacher has to go back and be the student constantly. And if you're going to be a parent, that doesn't mean you have to acquiesce to what they're doing and say, okay, fine, I'm going to do it your way. It just means you understand it so that you can see how they function. Then you can put your experience and the way you're doing things into the picture. But they're not going to hear it until you get to the way they're processing. It's sort of like the old days where we had a kid that had a learning disability, as they call them. And they're processing differences is all they are. Mm-hmm. Once you learn how the kid processes, you can teach. It's the same thing in parenting. We have to keep up with how they're processing, but we have to remain the teacher. We don't give in to that.
I love what you just said about students with learning disabilities. It's a huge passion of mine. Special education was my entire career. But, I also think about, okay, so, as people, as individuals, if we actually take that hat off and put in our careers, when we start our career 10 years later, we're doing it very differently. 20 years later, we're doing it very differently. 30 years, because things changed. Everything changes around us. So how can we possibly think that the way we were parented is still okay today? I'm just going to ask that question. Feel free to call in anybody with that.
It's a very important question. I get what look like simple questions from parents, which I open the door for huge discussions. I call my kid on the phone. They live in another state. Oh, I was so busy, I couldn't get back to you. And we know the phone is on their hip. So, and I'm telling them, let's use that to understand how they're thinking about things. That's why our ways were very good at that time.
Yes.
I was born as you when computers weren't around, and all of my kids, on the other hand, grew up with them. That information processing alone sets the stage for something so different. They have information, that they're getting at 10 or 11 or 12 that we didn't get till we were in our 20s. And they have it quickly. And, there I would call it I would say a microwave learning society. They go fast. Everything is fast. Mm-hmm. We didn't do that. So you don't have to go fast because you're not going to, but what you have to do is learn how to understand what they're doing and then bring it into your realm. Once you understand it, you can bring it right back into all your experiences and go back to your parenting. But, it's just a new thing that you have to learn and then keep up with all the time. And It goes fast. That's the problem. We don't go fast. That's their normal speed. That's it. That's just what they do. That's how fast their minds are working.
It is about developing new behaviors and new ways of doing things for us too. And then once it becomes normalized and routine for us, it's a lot easier, right?
It is, and the other thing is, you don't try to catch up with everything. because you're not going to. I'm in my 60s. I'm not going to catch up with the kid who's 15. But what I'm going to do is connect. Once I get them to connect, they're willing to talk about what's going on and how they're doing it, and I can explain a few things, and then there's an information exchange. But I have to get that connection. Parents are missing that right now because they're just going too fast. They're letting it fly past them. They get frustrated, throw their hands up, and if they get through the day, that's great. And your kids should be the most interesting people in your life. You have a young person developing right in front of you.
Yeah.
And you get to be part of that. How much better can it be? And that very point is what they don't want.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not going to be easy. It's not the old days. It doesn't go slow.
But they'll appreciate it when they get older. So people who are listening now, I think we've caught them. Yeah. All right. Anybody who is hesitant, do I really want to hear this? Let's move. And we are all human. We all make mistakes. But the fact that we're here listening and want to learn and do things differently, I think is a first step. Yeah. I want to ask you, Faust, about time, right? Because as you said, some people are working 3 jobs, 4 jobs, and the routine or the scheduling that we have for our kids, which I think we're becoming more in tuned about. How much time do we really need to be spending with our children, in a focused one-to-one or small group time every day? It is not 6 hours.
No, if the key is to establish the connection. If you and I establish connection and we say, hey, once every couple of weeks, we're going to talk for 5 or 10 minutes, we keep that going. It's the same thing with parenting. It's establishing the connection. And then if you, at the end of every day, if you can, you spend 5 or 10 minutes eye to eye listening, wonderful. We have the time to spend with the kids. We talk about the kids who are wrapped up in electronics and social media. The parents are there too. The parents right now are 20s and 30s, basically, who have these kids. They're computer-aged parents. They brought up in this. They're going on social media 2 hours a day, and they're saying, my kids don't connect with me. They're not going to if you have electronics going on in front of you. I mean, when we were kids, the TV was on. What did our parents say? Turn that off. I have to talk to you. I mean, that was a distraction. You didn't do something else while someone was talking to you. Today, that's commonplace. So we as parents have to say, let me put all this stuff down. I'm working 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Is it because I've got to pay the bills, or I want the vacation, or I want the new car? I have people coming in with, who make $70,000 or $80,000 a year, but they've got $2,500 a month mortgages, and they're funding 2 new cars that are $600 or $700 a month. So I said, by the time you guys are done, it's all this extra stuff, all this looking good, all that. If that's what you're working 2 jobs for, it's kind of neglectful for your kids. And
it's about making a conscious choice that this is going to be a priority for me every single day. And I guess I can state, you can still chase those other dreams, those other passions of yours. But if you put your kids in the front seat, things will change.
They will change. I had 4 kids, and I worked out and did all the things that parents do, but I took them with me. Now, does that mean I got a workout that was as good as it could be? No, but I'm able to do that, kept myself healthy. I was involved with them. I didn't go out with the boys and do whatever guys do at night. I was coaching 30 some teams as we thought by the time the kids got out of school. But I spent the time, because it's not just coaching them, it's practicing with them alone. It's driving to and from games, and not just talking about games. What are you guys into? What's happening in school? Do I have captive audience at that point? So
yes, I love being in the car. Whenever I wanted to have one of those conversations, it was, yep, we're going somewhere.
Let's go. You got it.
They're not jumping out.
No.
So because that communication becomes open and more of a natural thing.
And that's the key. You make it natural. You make it a routine. It's not a, how was your day? Good. Will anything happen? No, it's just routine. And then the conversation's over. And what do we say? Well, the kids don't talk to us. Well, not in that venue. This is where you sit down and say, grab something to eat, sit down and do something. They don't run in the house. I know, my friends online, and we're going to play video games. And with my kids, they didn't get cell phones till they were teenagers.
Mhm.
I didn't have video games in the house till that time. And then at that point, if they wanted to play, they got a half hour, an hour a day. And then we went outside and we played basketball or threw the ball around or kicked the soccer ball, whatever it was. So they really didn't, none of my kids grew up with a passion for electronics like that. None of them really played video games because I never really made it part of their lives early.
I think there's a lot of research now. The pendulum is starting to swing back. We're more aware. I think we forgot a lot about childhood development, right? Pre 5 years old. My God, it's the experiences that teach kids, what I like to do, what I don't like to do, and communication and understanding the norms of what's right and what's wrong, and developing our principles, our belief systems. It's so important. And so when they're on video games and on technology, they're losing that developmental time. And I'm actually an invitation, anyone who's involved in the Wait to 8 program. Cell phones should not be in the hands of kids before they're in grade 8. And there are individual circumstances, of course, that might make that look differently. But once we introduce technology to our children, a phone is a phone. It does not need to be a phone with 5 social media apps. When children learn to be well, and I mean emotionally well, they will understand what I like, what I'm letting into my world, what I'm not letting into my world, what I'm getting involved in that social media thing. So I love the recommendations of you start by a phone and they learn how to manage that phone properly, when it's on, when it's off, when it's not involved at the family table or whatever you're doing for that time that you're going outside. And then introducing one app, and that might be a communication app. It might be only that. And by the time they're 16 years old or so, they know all the threats. They know the bots. They know the predators that are out there. They've learned all that and can manage that tech in a way that is meaningful to them, but doesn't take over their lives. And that's what's happening with too many of our kids right now.
I've always said to parents that, I kind of divide them in 2 groups. The first one, are the people who really want to be parents and they fight nothing about it. Kids come first. Then there are the other ones that go along with it, but it's kind of like, I got to do this now. Okay, fine, let's go. Kids pick up on that really quick.
Yes.
I remember coming home from, we went to, I live in Pennsylvania. Went down to Virginia for a tournament for the weekend. And of course, drove down to the hotels and the whole deal while I had the tournament and came back on a Sunday night we got in about 5, unpacked a few things. And about 6 o'clock, one of my kids who felt he didn't do quite as good as he should have said, "Can you come outside and kick the soccer ball around with me and play goalie?" And I'm thinking to myself, I just wrote, did all this stuff, drove 6 hours, did all this. He wants to play soccer. Let's go. Come on, let's go. That's fine. Because either you're going to be kid first or you're not. And that doesn't mean doing things their way and giving in real quick. It means looking at it and saying, okay, what do I need to do? And that's what I did. What do I need to do right now? Do I need to say, no, come on, sit down, relax? A lot of parents would. Or do I need what's he really asking me? He wants to kick the ball around. He wants to fix a little something, and he needs the nurturance to say, you're doing great. He didn't quite feel as much as he, even though we said all that, he didn't feel. So what did he really need? And that's a thing I tell parents. Ask yourself, what are they really asking for? What's this behavior really mean right now? And if you slow down enough to think about it and you're willing to put yourself into it, it doesn't matter whether you fix it. The fact that you were present, that fixed it. Because it's a marathon, as we say. It's them seeing it all the time. We may not get the solution, but you know what? The solution sometimes isn't that little fix. The solution was I needed you. I needed you at that moment. That was my solution. And every time I feel something, I know I got a safety net. I know you're my safety net, and I can come right to you, and you're not going to judge. You may tell it the way it is, and I may not want to hear it, but I know you are tuned in, and you are loving me and hearing me and giving me the best you can. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, and that invitation to come on out and shoot the ball around with me. It goes both ways too. When you invite your child or your children to join you, we used to have mom special days in my family. And, I was a superintendent of education, for Pete's sakes, a school principal before that. My husband was a police officer. It was tough to find that time. We took our kids camping, and I'm not saying we did everything right. Trust me, trust me. My daughter developed anxiety later in her life, despite everything we did. And that's a whole other topic. That's an entire podcast interview. Actually, I wrote a book about it, but that's it. Yeah, we didn't do everything right. But there's no guilt now. We did what we knew about back in those days. We took our kids camping 4 or 5, 6 times a year. Wonder why my kids aren't living anywhere near me now. They're around the world because we introduced them to traveling. I take some credit for that. And that's okay. I guess I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, in that if we give back that time to them and they see us as, I want you with me right now, it's not just them extending the invitation to us to have time.
One of my kids said to me, one of his friends, they were 13, 14 by then, wanted him to go more places with him. He said, I kind of felt guilty not being around you. I was going to say, Dad, I want to go here instead. And I said, you know what? That you express that, wonderful. Go have a good time. And I'm here. You're right. There are times I'm sitting, in my office or whatever, and I have 20 minutes or a half hour, and I'll say, let's go do this. Or I'm running an errand. Come on with me.
Yeah.
That I wanted them to be there all the time. That invitation always open. They knew it. So I'm not doing that. I am not saying I wanted to be their best friend. That is not what I am their dad. And that's the relationship. But their dad said, come on, let's go. And the conversation was usually great in the car. Or sometimes I say, now that I got you about that thing last night, and we're going to go through it. It doesn't matter. The key is this, that they know I'm there. And my kids range in age from almost 30 to 35, and there are 4 of them. And I still check in, and like you, I've one lives with me yet. 3 of them are out of the house and in different places across the country. And I check in. And I say, let's FaceTime today so I could look at you,
Yeah, exactly.
Do all those things.
I was on WhatsApp with my son last week, and he called, and I said, turn on the video. He's in Australia, too far away. Turn on the video. I want to see your beautiful face. Yeah.
And I
I just want to add a little, and if your kids decline and they say, no, thanks, I want to do this right now, then that's okay. They've still heard you.
Yeah.
And they
that's
still
the key.
feel
Funny you said that. I had one that I went to grad school in Australia. So, that 18-hour time difference or whatever that was. So, there were times when, it was like 1 a.m. or whatever. You're going to stay up to talk. Why would I not?
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, you're down there. If that's when I'm going to see you, that's great. Or if you're up one day, you're studying and it's 1 o'clock in the morning on your time, then shoot me a text or a call and say, hey, do you have time? And if I do, and they know, if I do, yes, obviously.
And you speak from the context of the clients that you're working with, and you can see that these are the issues that they're facing, right? We've got a lot of listeners that want to help, that want to make a change, or actually saying, hey, wow, I got it right. I'm doing it right. Thanks for validating that I'm on the right track.
And absolutely. And a lot of you listeners are on the right track. You just don't know it because you don't get the feedback. Your kids don't say, what a great job you're doing.
How true.
The thing I would tell people is, even if you think you're off track and you want to pull the kids in, if you're going to start this and you don't have it where you want it, you're going to get some pullback. You're going to get some resistance. Keep doing it. And if you must, this is where you have to pull rank and say, wait a minute. We need some time together. We need to get back. I need to, know more about you. I'm not looking to pry into your personal life. I want to connect, and we're going to do that. And eventually, the resistance stops, and then they say, "Yep." And the friends say, can we go there at 4? No, 4:30 maybe. I got to be with my mom or dad at that, and they just get used to it. And you're going to have that pushback. Don't worry about it. It's normal. You're trying to institute something that doesn't exist. So, you're going to cut down the weeds until you get to the new playing field. That's okay. Cut down the weeds. Don't, again, I remember sitting on my deck in the back of the house, 30 years ago when the kids were small, and asking myself, how do I want them to look back and remember me? What kind of dad do I want them to remember? Well, and that question changed my life, because then I said, okay, I want this, but in order to have that, I have to do all these things. Either you're in or you're not. So whether it's marriage counseling, I'll tell parents you want to be a partner. Either you're all the way in or you're not. If you're raising kids and you want to really have that relationship and do it right, then get all the way in. That's your first step, and no parental resistance. You brought them into the world, I assume, because you want to love them and teach them and grow with them.
That's a beautiful way for us to move into break. But when we come back, we hope you'll stay with us, everyone. I spoke a little bit about anxiety. We've got a lot of kids, a lot of youth, children and youth, teenagers suffering from anxiety today. No one wants this for their child. And, some of those signs at the beginning can be easy to miss. I'm guilty of that. I missed it. I waited for the symptoms. We're going to talk about that, and we'll be back in a moment.
Our children are growing up in a world that is more complex than ever. It's time to start thinking proactively. Meet Zirco and the children who glow in the color they are feeling because they haven't learned to control their emotions yet. In the Power of Thought Children's series, we're not only teaching children about emotional vocabulary, but how to recognize how they are feeling and what they can do about it. We live on an imaginary planet called Tezra, where every character is named after a crystal. Each of the 5 books in the series takes children into a situation they can relate to, but teaches problem-solving skills and evidence-based strategies they can use for life. This series was developed in collaboration with clinicians, educators, parents, and guardians, and it's the winner of the Mom's Choice Award. Check it out at lynnmclaughlin.com under the Books tab. Now, back to the show.
And we're back with Faust Ruggiero, and we're going to jump in now with anxiety because we've talked about this in the past. We wait for symptoms. But I now know that my child, my daughter, was a difficult birth. She had RSV when she was 3 months old. She was on treatments at home for many, many months. She went to the hospital many, many times and eventually was diagnosed with childhood asthma. But how can we be proactive and think about, okay, something has just happened. Is this something that could potentially become debilitating for my child, cause increased anxiousness and worry? How do we put our eyes on that?
That's what everyone tries to do. And my response to them is, unless you are really, really educated about it, you won't. Now we're back to that connecting. We have to know who our children are. In psychology, we call it our baseline behaviors and what you see in your kids every day. Now you get to know them. If you're spending a lot of time, enough time with them, you'll know what that is, their baseline, their normal way of behaving. If they deviate from that, then you question, okay, what's up? Well, you're a little different today. Now they may or may not even know it's occurring. They may say, no, I'm not. And that's when you say, well, here's what I'm seeing. This is what you normally are. This is exactly what I'm seeing different. And I need to, sometimes when you tell them that, then the light bulb goes on, or sometimes they walk away thinking. And then, mom or dad is, seeing these things. I can go back there. And you don't get it, just like as we were saying before the break, you don't get this unless you learn who your children are. You spend time with them and you understand how they think and how they feel and how they behave. Now you can look for differences. And that's what we do with everyone. It could be an employee, they're the same way every day. All of a sudden they're quiet, or they're a little late, or this didn't get done, or isolating themselves. And you may go and say, what's up? You're a little different. And they're not going to tell you. You're the boss. They're not going to tell you anything, but you're going to at least say, well, I'm here and I see that something's a little bit different. I got you. I got your back if you need me. However, it's up to you to come. But I do see some things that are different. That's all you got to do.
Yeah. And you open up the ability for them to come to you without judgment or fear of being fired or terminated or let go or any of those other kinds of things. Yeah. Right. But I want to go back to what you were saying about that open communication. When you notice something is different with your child, they very often, depending upon their how old they are, their developmental level, all those kinds of things, aren't even going to be able to realize that something's off with them. Yeah, they
That's
could
what
probably say, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous going to school, but maybe they can't say why. Maybe they can, right? Or, yeah, I used to be able to do that, but I'm not feeling so confident about it anymore. It opens up the door, like you said, for them to walk away, even think about it, and then that conversation can carry on.
we all would love to have that one person we can talk to. And what's the key word? Safe. It's safe.
Hmm.
I can bring it out. You may tell me some things I'm not, I don't like so much, but it's safe. I'm not getting judged. I'm not getting put down. I'm not being told there's something wrong with me or whatever it may be. I'm, I always tell people maintain that eye contact with them when they're talking, and simply say, I'm here. There's no judgment. If there's a problem, let's talk about it. Kids today don't have the boundaries and the role structure we had. We were this or this or this. I always
Hmm.
tell the story about, when we got sneakers when we were kids. We had about three choices. And
Yeah,
it
true.
was high tops, low tops, black, white. If you were really lucky, you got a red pair. And we were thrilled because that was it. Today there are 1,000 choices and nobody's happy with what they got because there's too much information going in.
Go back to
Too
what we were
many
talking about at the
choices.
beginning. Yeah.
They're not locked into things. Sexuality and gender and all those sorts of things don't have boundaries anymore. Kids are trying to search for their label, as they call it. We have pronouns. We have all. This is a very confusing world. So it's got to be made safe. Hey, this is our
Yeah.
house. Whatever you say here stays with us. You can talk to me about anything. It's got to be safe. And if you start telling your kids, let's do that, they will resist because it's not safe yet. But keep going. And keep telling them I'm here. And you seem to be a little off. You're down. You're isolating. You're nervous. You're angry. You're reacting. Be prepared for this. When you tell them that, they're going to say it's because of and give something outside of themselves. You did this, or my brother or sister or dad or whatever. They're going to give you that. The teacher at school, anything. They're going to do anything to get off the subject. What they tell you initially is often not as important as establishing the safe place. It's what we do in counseling. I don't just dive right into what in the world's wrong with you. That first session is bonding.
No.
It's setting that time up where it's safe and getting that rapport. And that's what you want to do with your kids. Don't worry about solving anything. Get the rapport. It's a safe place. They can talk about what they need to talk about with you. That's all. That's your first step in being proactive in these matters.
Isn't it just as important for us as parents to show our vulnerability and to model how we deal with those stressors in our lives, and they see us as being human?
And not only human, they see us as fighting the battle. They see some of the tools we're using, and they realize you can come through it. Rather than, I got this, nobody understands me, I'm different, there's no way out of this, you really don't care about this, all those kinds of things. And we don't want to get them into a position where they can't live up to us or believe that no matter what they do, it's wrong and they're going to be told about it. And we have a tendency to either one way or another, either we're too positive, oh, you're wonderful on everything, because we don't want to fight, or what's wrong with you? We have to put those things together. We have to tell them what we feel when we think it's not right, and we have to tell them when they're doing a great job. And again, we're back to, we have to take care of ourselves first. We have to be healthy. We have to be able to want that safe place, because you got to work for it. It doesn't just come.
No, it's awkward, especially if we weren't raised that way ourselves,
Right,
for sure,
the other
for
part.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about validation. So, I'll just give a concrete example. A 10-year-old young lady's coming home from school and screaming about something that they did or happened to them. And in the back of your mind going, you are kidding me. That's not the way I raised you. Why would you respond that way? But you don't say it. How do we go about validating what our child is saying, even when we don't agree with it or we want to teach them in a different way?
Two starting points. First, again, you're maintaining the eye contact and you're staying put. And the second thing is you're getting information. If what's going through your head is, what? I didn't raise you that way, you're already looking and going, and they're going to pick that up. So you're not going to say that. You're just simply going to say, tell me more. Let's get a dialogue going. I'm going to ask you some questions. You're going to tell me some things I don't want to hear. I'm positive of that. We were raised, anywhere from 2 to 3, sometimes 4 decades differently, depending on when you have your children. So I don't know. And if you think that, gee, I don't know, then good. Tell me. I'm listening. That's all you're doing. You're putting them in a position where they must communicate with you. You're saying, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, but it's unspoken. But guess what? Neither are you.
and at that point, do you say, what other choices might you have made, and have them think about the other possibilities so they don't repeat that behavior that could, potentially get themselves in trouble in the future?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. What did you do? Give me the information. So show me how you got from A to B to C to D. Okay, along the line, were there a couple options? And we're always dealing with our emotions in these matters. And again, the advice is, I always call it I over E, your intellect over your emotion. Doesn't mean you don't get a chance to emote. You do, but slow your brain down a bit so you can get the facts. Then emote on what's real rather than, oh my God, where are they going? Oh, you did what? Because none of that is going to fix anything, and none of it's going to set up that safe place.
No, it actually puts a barrier between it. But we have become very reactionary as a society, right? We just have. Woo, I got to tell you this, and this is my opinion, and you need to listen to it and
and accept it. Yes.
And accept it. Yeah. Very reactionary. Okay. I want to jump over to your book, Fix It Yourself Handbook. And I believe you're about to come out with part 2. What's that all about, Faust?
The Fix Yourself Handbook came out, I published in 2019. That's the one that had all the processes. I designed that book to stimulate a counseling session so people could understand what it was like. All the processes I use, and they're basic. They're nothing, so difficult to understand. Basic concepts: honesty and getting your emotions in check and slowing down and, learning how not to people please and anger and all those things. They're all in there. 36 chapters, 36 different processes, so you can apply them to anything in your life. So that book was in 2019. We were going to do a sequel to it, but then as I looked after the pandemic, when we started writing the second book, we thought anxiety would be the way to go. So the new book is the Fix Your Anxiety Handbook, and designed to have people understand, get the myths of anxiety out of the way. Let's look at exactly what this is, what the facts are, and how we start moving through it. And what you find, believe it or not, is that anxiety is pretty much the same for kids and adults. We just express it a bit differently. We're more verbal. They're not as verbal. We have more experiences, more things to draw on. They don't. And we don't do a good job. So, get the information out. It was the key to that book. And it hit the shelves, so to speak, about a month ago, and it's doing quite well. I'm surprised. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised with anxiety at the levels it's at today. That's what people are looking for. But that's about a month in, and using the same formats. All the books are going to use exactly the same format. Small chapters, go right to the point, get the information, and then a section below that says, okay, based on this, these are all the things you have to do. 4, 5, 6, 7 points, whatever it may be. And that's what people are liking, because they're getting the information, but I make it practical and usable. You can.
Oh, yes. Oh, congratulations. Concrete. People want concrete. How to? Give me an example. Yeah. What's an example of a myth about anxiety, Faust?
A myth on anxiety. It starts in your brain, and then it's from all these extra things in your life. My boss this, my girlfriend this. Anxiety starts in your body. And that's where we're going to treat it first. You can feel it. We have a nervous system. It goes through the body. It fires up. We go there. Then it hits the emotions, and we go, oh my God, what if? And then our brain says, all right, I got to figure all this out. And now what am I looking at? Whatever the brain is thinking, that must be caused by. So now we try to calm the brain down. The emotions in the body, we are still full throttle, and we're trying to calm the brain down. It doesn't work. We're defeated every time we try. We exhaust all the alternatives, we think, and nothing is left. So go to the doctor and get the medicine. So in the end, what's the best that we could do? We treated some symptoms. We calmed the body down without ever fixing a darn thing. When we understand that our first order of business is to get the body, first of all, get it healthy. And now we're back to the proactive stuff. Sleep properly, eat properly, stop putting amphetamines all in your body and then saying, why do I have anxiety? Exercise if you can. Get your body healthy. It's what's carrying you through the world. People who have healthy bodies are less prone to anxiety. Doesn't mean they don't get it, but they're less prone, and the body's healthy enough to begin to fight against it. So we go physical. And if you think about it, if you and I are talking, you say, my God, I think I'm in an anxiety attack. What should I do? What's the first thing I'm going to say? Slow down a bit. Catch your breath. Let's get your breathing in order.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get you, now we can move into whatever, meditate or yoga or do whatever you want to do. But let's get you to the point that your body goes down a bit. Now we start doing all the rest. Well, if we do that on a grand scale, if we do that all the time, and then we take our emotions and we say, okay, fine, I'm not going to react to this because my body's down. Now my brain has a whole lot less to work with in terms of symptoms, and it can focus on a whole lot more information to help me do the right things. But I got to get my body down first.
Yeah, I love that you just mentioned breathing, because I know, and so I'm going to go back to the proactive piece here. I know when I'm going in front of an audience, I start to do the
Yeah, we all do.
Right. So when the person is about to introduce me, no one can see me in my seat, but I'm doing my deep breathing. And I don't care if people see me now. It doesn't matter to me. I do deep breathing. I know that this is something that will happen every single time. I have a strategy in place. I use it. I get up on the stage and I hope I rock it every time. But you're right. If your body is in a place of calm, then your mind can deal with what's happening and say, hold on, this is the choice I'm going to make, rather than letting it take me over.
And again, people will hear this and say, okay, I got to get my body down. And now they put pressure on themselves to get your body down. Calmly. It's a program you're going to put in place.
And it takes time and it takes practice. It's not something overnight, right?
If you start this and you can stay consistent, breathing exercises, calming down, if you can meditate, whatever, and you do this every day faithfully for about a month, then you'll start to say, now I'm getting it. Because the way the brain learns, I'm sure you know as a teacher, it's repetition over time. That's how the brain, it doesn't just get it in the snap of your fingers. Repetition over time, the brain now learns new patterns and it starts using them. And then you start to feel it. But your brain has to learn how to deal with those, how to use that information first.
I've seen families doing deep breathing together, gone into kindergarten, all the way kindergarten, grade 5, up to secondary school, and modeled deep breathing. And I'm not a clinician like you are. I'm a master's of ed teacher with a lot of experience. My niece, who's my partner in crime here, is a social worker, and boy, it makes a difference. But as you said, it's not just going in and doing it once. It's making that a regular practice. And deep breathing is only one of hundreds of different examples, which I'm sure you've got in your book, of people to find a way to get control of their lives.
And it all works if you keep doing it. I mean, I've always said to people, could you imagine if I didn't do any of these things I'm trying to teach you, and now you came and sat down with me to be counseling? I would probably talk over you. I'd be jumping to conclusions. I wouldn't get all the information, and then eventually as a clinician, I'd burn out. But you walk in, you see me calm, and they'll remark on that. They'll say, how do you stay so calm when all these people are telling you all this insanity all the time? And that's what happens when you train your brain. The brain will get to the point that instead of reacting in pressure situations, it automatically decreases energy. My wife will always say, how that big bang just happened. We all got, and you just went like this. My brain, all these years I've been saying, when this happens, I'm going to do the opposite. When I hear that, I'm going to go that. When you tell me something startling, I'm going to say, okay, let's look at it. Because I not only am I helping you, I'm giving myself a chance, to deal with the situation, but I'm also putting me in a position so that I don't get crazy over something, because I don't like those feelings. And people deal with that every day. So, that's what you learn. I don't like feeling that way, so I'm going to do some other things.
That's another big question. Is this the way you want to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years?
Think of anxiety as your whole person, your whole body, your mind, your emotions become overly sensitized. That's what's going on. So the obvious answer, what do I want here, is to desensitize. So in those pressure situations, those high reactive situations, to go the other way. And I like to, take that deep breath and take a step back, because I don't want to be right in the moment, right in the physical space where I heard it. Take a step back and then say this to myself: okay, that just happened. What do I want to do about it? So what have I done? I've pulled my body down just a bit. I've slowed it down. 2, I've taken a step out of the situation, so I'm not in the quicksand for the moment. And then I've given my brain a chance to say, what do we want to do? Let's get some intellectual information here. So I put myself in a position to do something that makes some sense. Now, what I just told you, go back to when we were kids and mom used to say, count to 10 before you.
True.
It's real.
Yeah.
So what we do in the first 3 to 5 seconds will dictate how we handle the situation. So those first 3 or 4 or 5 seconds to me are very important. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to give myself a chance to think. And then with my emotions down a little bit, breathing, get down. Breathing helps the emotions go down a little bit too. And the other thing is, think about, I'll use an example. Facebook, someone posts something and it's just what you don't like. You get, and then you hit, you've already
24-hour rule.
I didn't think about it. So what did I do? I calmed down. I didn't get my emotions in there. So I took my emotions down. They didn't react. I walked away and said, A, do I really want to and need to respond to this? And B, if I do, what do I want to do? Now, I didn't respond in a second or two. I've taken a step back. I've given that wonderful neurological machine of mine a chance to do its thing. And I didn't flood it with emotions, because emotions are like a virus to the way your brain can work. It just comes in and overpowers everything. So all my energy, which would have gone to emotion, gets to go to my brain. And I say, do I want to do that?
And what are my other choices?
And that's the next
snooze, step. Unfriend, not follow, all kinds of those things. I just want to jump in because I think what you're saying about Facebook applies to a lot of things. And in my profession, I learned right from the get-go, because things will set you off all the time, right? I sometimes will type an email or a response and it sits for 24 hours.
And so do I.
And 10 times out of 10, it does not get sent the way it was typed. Exactly. It doesn't get sent at all. It's a telephone call. It's another way of communication. It's whatever. But it is about training ourselves to say, I am not reacting in this moment. I love what you just shared.
And the next step is that one gets me to not do the negative. But then the next part is, how can I give the most powerful version of myself in the next breath? It's not with emotions and calling people names. It's not with getting anxious and screaming and yelling. None of that. And then now I've got to, go back and fix that. How can I take that step back, look at the options I have, and deliver the most appropriate, powerful statement that I'm capable of offering? I can't do that when my body is going fast, and my heart's beating, and my emotions are screaming, and the what ifs, and I'll kill you, and all those things I take a step back, and I'm going to say, okay, let me strategize for a moment. What do I want to do? That's that question. How do I want to handle this? What do I want to do? However you want to ask it. Is such a powerful question, because now we're talking about intellect working, emotions put on the back burner. I have options, and guess what? I can see them. I couldn't see them when I was reacting. Because I was already in action. I was already in reactive modes. I was already moving. My emotions already decided what I was going to do. Now, tying that into anxiety, if we do that all the time, we always remain at an elevated and accelerated physical, emotional state. So our bodies are getting beat up. we invite more diseases. We invite more, just horrible times into our life. So I phase that part out of my life, or at least I reduce it. I'm not reactive as much as I used to. My anxiety goes down.
And you're setting a wonderful example for your children.
Exactly.
And then you can find the time to be present and calm and listening and open up those doors of communication on a regular basis.
Exactly. And that initial reaction when is our bodies really, if you take your brain out of the picture, it's your body saying, this is in me. I got to get it out of me. So we react and scream. And a lot of us will say, better when I vent it all out. Now I feel better. No, you didn't, because you hurt this person. Now you got to fix this and the collateral damage here and what you broke or whatever it may be. So we don't have that. Now,
a tornado.
We backed up and said, what do I want to do with this? Guess what? We're getting it out. And we offer ourselves another possibility, which we didn't think about. We get to talk about it. You hurt me when you said that, or this really made me angry, and I need to talk to you about that. We give other options, and it doesn't matter what the person says. We often hold it in or scream and yell because we know they're going to. We can't control them. We can only control what we do, and the goal is to make us feel better. And then we walk away saying, I handled that pretty well. I can do this. Let me do it again.
That's beautiful. And I love the concrete example of how emotions are taking over and how we can take charge and pull that back. All right, Faust, how can people reach you?
The best way to reach me, Lynn, is on my website, www.faustruggiero.com. My name, or type my name in Google search. It'll bring you to the website. Everything about me, the books, examples of what's written in the book, so they can see how I do things. That's all there. Contact links, everything, even counseling links, whatever they want. Everything is on my website, faustruggiero.com.
And I'm going to spell your last name for you for our listeners. It's Ruggiero. Thanks so much.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Now, if you're frustrated daily because you can't connect with a child who is out of control or defiant, join us next week with Ginny Luther. She's experienced crises in her life that are unimaginable and has now authored her new book called Blue Star Grit, a mother's journey of triumph and tragedy, raising a defiant child into an exceptional leader. How many of us are shoulding our children? And Ginny's going to share with us how peaceful parenting does come with consequences, and we do not give up our limits. We'll talk about how we can be assertive, set boundaries, and be kind and firm at the same time. And we close every week by saying, let's check our compass and learn what we need to so we can empower our children to face those ups and downs of life, which are surely going to come. Have a safe and healthy week, everyone.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Taking the Helm. We hope that Lynn and her guests have provided valuable insights on how to create a safe, emotional space for your children that empowers them to be their best selves. Until we talk again, have a wonderful week.